26-year-old Loretta Saunders was going through an incredibly exciting time in her life. She was studying criminology at St. Mary's University in Halifax, Canada, with hopes of going to law school afterwards. She was part of a large, loving family with 7 siblings. And while they lived far apart, the family was very close. Loretta and her family had been through many hardships over the years. Her brother Dolly said that as children, they had suffered both physical and sexual abuse. As soon as she was old enough, Loretta moved away to live in Montreal. It was a big change for her. Unfortunately, it soon became clear that she had a severe addiction to illicit substances, which at one point became so intense that she was sleeping on the street. Loretta began a treatment program. As soon as her life was back on track, she applied to St. Mary's University. She was over the moon when she got accepted and decided that after completing her courses, she would study to become a lawyer. When it came to her university thesis, she knew right away what she wanted to focus on: missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. It was something she felt very passionate about, given her own experiences and those of her family, and she hoped to one day work on a documentary about it. She was in a wonderful relationship with Yeltsin Circleté, and the couple had been dating for almost 3 years. Yeltsin told his family and friends that Loretta was the one. She experienced even more joy when she found out she was 3 months pregnant and couldn't wait to start a family. She and Yeltsin began living at his home, so Loretta sublet her apartment to earn a little extra money. She had so many things to look forward to and was making positive changes in her life. It was a new and exciting beginning for the couple. There were only a few months left of school, and she was eagerly anticipating her future child. On February 14, 2014, Yeltsin called her brother and asked if Loretta was anywhere nearby. He was in a panic. Yeltsin had received a few strange messages from his girlfriend that seemed tense to him. In the first message, she wrote that she had locked herself out of her online banking as she had forgotten her password. In the second message, she said she was going to stay with a friend and would call back later. Yeltsin had no idea who this friend was, and the message was short with no details. But her brother Dolly hadn't heard from or seen her either. As time went on, Loretta's mother and father began to worry too. It was a red flag for them, as they communicated with their daughter several times a day. Over the next 2 days, everyone was calling each other, hoping someone had been able to reach Loretta, but that wasn't the case. Her car was also gone, but all her belongings were still at home. On the 3rd day, the family called the police and filed a missing persons report. Detectives came to Yeltsin's home. As far as everyone knew, he was the last person to see her. The young man said Loretta had a busy day planned on February 13th with lots of errands and studying. Her day began with going to her apartment to collect rent money, and after that, she was pretty much on the go all day. He told police she wasn't under any stress when she left home. She was organized and put together, so those text messages he received were completely out of character for her. Police spent several hours searching the couple's home but eventually left, confident that Yeltsin had nothing to do with her disappearance and that he was just as worried about her as everyone else. The officers then went to her apartment at 41 Cowie Hill Road, apartment 1003, but there was no one there. It seemed like there was nothing unusual, everything was neat, and things appeared to be okay. Neighbors said the couple living there had left a few days ago to celebrate Valentine's Day and no one had been in the apartment since then. There was a video camera installed on the 1st floor directed at the front door. It captured Loretta entering the building at around 11 a.m. on February 13th. Given the fact she had been missing for 4 days now, the police had a lot of footage to go through. It was entirely possible she stayed at her apartment while the tenants were away and then left. So it was necessary to check every camera. An online fundraiser was organized to help fly Loretta's 5 siblings and parents from Labrador to Nova Scotia. Within days, they raised the needed amount and the family were finally able to be together. Detectives reached out to Blake and Victoria, the couple who were renting the apartment from Loretta, but they too said they hadn't seen or heard from her in several days. They said they were currently far away from the city, about 200 miles, so at the moment, there was not much they could likely help with. Soon detectives learned that Loretta's cards were active and being used for tap purchases. Everyone felt this was a good sign. On February 13th at around 5 in the evening, Loretta's cards were used at a store. The cameras captured her car parked outside. But the woman using the card did not look like Loretta. A few minutes later, her card was used again at a Tim Hortons about 10 miles from her home. The security camera footage showed a woman in a blue jacket. As the employee moved aside, the person driving could be seen. It was clearly not Loretta. 5 days later, detectives in Halifax got a call from a different police department. Loretta's vehicle had been located. It was in Harrow, Ontario, and was parked outside a home. Inside the home were Blake Leggett and Victoria Henberry, Loretta's tenants. They were arrested for car theft, but police still needed to find out what happened and where Loretta was, and if the couple actually had anything to do with the girl's disappearance. It had been 8 days since she vanished, and while her car was found, Loretta Saunders was still nowhere to be seen. This left police and her family with a lot of questions. Blake told officers that Loretta had sold him the car before they left. He said the car was cheaper than flying, so he happily took her up on the offer. Police soon discovered the couple had outstanding warrants unrelated to this. Blake had an unpaid warrant for failing to appear in court in Calgary, and Victoria was wanted for threatening someone in Halifax. When they were searched, Loretta's phone was found on Victoria and Blake had the banking cards. Police were going through the security cameras at the apartment building looking for Blake or Victoria. And on February 13th, at 2:30, Blake was seen on the footage with what was clearly a heavy hockey bag. He carried it outside and then returned to the building. Then, half an hour later, he was seen again on the footage with 2 bags, and this time he was with Victoria. Police said the video was concerning. To them, it was obvious that Loretta was most likely in that hockey bag and was unlikely to be alive. Neither Blake nor Victoria were saying anything, but when police listened to the man's phone, they discovered he came as close to a confession as one could get. Just days before Loretta was last seen, Blake had filmed Victoria during a drunken argument. Detectives knew cracking Victoria would be a lot easier than Blake, and they presented her with the video footage. After a long silence, she finally said he did it. He killed her. He had suffocated her with a bag. Victoria said it was all done to avoid paying the rent money they owed. It soon emerged that Loretta had indeed asked the couple to leave the apartment after she had gone months without receiving rent or getting it late. They owed her about $600, and Loretta was at her wits' end. That day, she decided to wait until they paid her, and then make sure they left. Police were demanding more information from Victoria and asked her to tell them where Loretta was. 2 weeks after the search began, Victoria agreed to take investigators to Loretta. On the side of a highway, about 300 miles from the apartment, Loretta's body was found. Despite Victoria's partial confession, the couple pleaded not guilty. While their lawyers insisted they be tried separately, the judge denied this motion and said they would be tried at the same time. Just as their trial was about to begin, their statements suddenly changed. An agreed statement of facts was presented to the court. They each laid out their version of events, and the alleged truth about what happened that day finally came out. They both said that as Loretta was sitting on a chair waiting for them to give her the rent money, Blake came up behind her and started to strangle her. Loretta fought back desperately, and the couple fell to the floor. Blake then tried to suffocate her with 4 plastic bags, but Loretta tore through them all. Blake then banged her head against the floor several times until she stopped moving. After that, the man wrapped her head in plastic wrap and put her in his hockey bag. Blake dragged the bag downstairs and put it in the back seat of Loretta's own car. The couple then hit the road as if nothing had happened. They used Loretta's bank card to buy supplies for the trip, but since they didn't know the password, Victoria used Loretta's phone and sent the text to Yeltsin pretending to be her. Loretta Saunders lost her life all because Victoria and Blake didn't want to pay her the $600 they owed. It's abundantly clear that she fought for her life. The way this couple plotted and tried to cover everything up is both horrifying and disturbing. After their statement of facts, Blake pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, and Victoria pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Blake's lawyer said that the decision to plead guilty was his own. He didn't want the Saunders family to go through a very grueling trial process. Blake automatically received life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. Victoria was also sentenced to life in prison, but she can apply for parole after 10 years. The judge called the crime despicable, horrific, and cowardly. As for the family, it's understandable that emotions were running high the entire time. At one point, Loretta's brother lunged at Blake and Victoria, shouting at them, and as the family left the courtroom, someone yelled at Blake that they would be waiting for him when he got out. In early 2017, Victoria tried to withdraw her guilty plea, claiming she was not of sound mind when she changed her statement. Just a couple of months later, this was denied. After that, Victoria began telling people she had indigenous ancestry on her mother's side, but the parole board noted they knew nothing about this history. The community and Loretta's family said claiming something like that was an insult to Loretta's memory. They called it a stunt and a game. 2 years later, Victoria reached out to the Indigenous Women's Support Center, hoping they could help get her out of prison, but the center denied her request. Victoria then asked for a pass to attend an Indigenous women's sharing and drumming circle. The parole board granted her this pass, but it was quickly revoked after public outrage. Victoria is now banned from accessing any local services. In 2014, a girl named Tina Fontaine was reported missing and later found wrapped in plastic and weighted down in a river. A 53-year-old man was charged but was found not guilty due to a lack of forensic evidence. After the murders of Loretta and Tina, as well as many other murders and disappearances of women, an indigenous group with the hashtag #AMINext asked for an inquiry into missing and murdered indigenous women. This project was officially launched in 2017 and completed in 2019. Loretta's brother Dino created a blog called A Murder Survivor's Grief and began working closely with Matthew Smiley, who created the documentary Highway of Tears. The film is about the infamous Highway 16 and First Nation people who have gone missing or been murdered on this stretch of road. 2 movie theaters showed the documentary in support of the Loretta Saunders Fund, which awarded a scholarship to girls helping to pay for further education after high school. Dina said this was done in honor of Loretta, of what she didn't get to do. She wanted to do the same thing Matthew was doing. She was supposed to be here as a brilliant writer, director, and screenwriter. But instead, she became another statistic. Despite all the great work Dina was doing, subconsciously, he wanted his sister to be proud of him. Dina soon received the International Ambassador of Conscience Award. He had learned so much in the short time spent with his sister. She taught him many lessons and continues to inspire and guide him. He hopes that by sharing her experiences and his own, he can do some good for people. In a catastrophic turn of events in September 2021, Loretta's mother Miriam Saunders passed away. After losing her daughter, her substance abuse issues escalated even more, leading to liver failure. Miriam abruptly stopped taking her prescribed medication and began drinking to ease the pain of withdrawal. It was later confirmed that Miriam died of asphyxiation and complications related to her ongoing addiction issues. What happened on February 13, 2014, took so many lives that the aftermath is still felt today. Loretta Saunders was living an amazing and exciting time in her life. She was preparing to become a mother and was filled with joy. Her other greatest passion in life was helping to educate people. She was very proud of her thesis and was looking forward to one day sharing it. My story is not unique. Thousands of girls experience things I can't even imagine. It is through this project I aim to educate and enlighten others, and instill inspiration and hope that change is possible. Thank you for watching. I recommend checking out more stories. Click now, and don't forget to hit the bell and subscribe to our channel.